All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free is 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, including Facebook, MySpace, Vimeo, YouTube, and all the others, one address, X Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Lee Boyland. We're going to be talking to Lee about what's going on in the Ukraine and with our good friend Vladimir Putin. Now, Lee is well qualified to write and talk about all types of weapons, nuclear, chemical, biological, and conventional. He has a degree in nuclear engineering. He served 3 years in the U.S. Army as an explosive ordnance disposal officer assigned to the Defense Atomic Support Agency. Sandy Base, now part of Kirkland Air Force Base, Albuquerque, New Mexico. DASA controlled the development and the stockpiling of all nuclear and thermonuclear weapons, providing Lieutenant Boyland access to the design details of every nuclear and thermonuclear warhead developed by the United States up to the Mark 63. With what's going on in the Ukraine, hey, Lee Boyland is our man. And Lee, welcome back to the X Zone.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be on your fine show.
Thanks, Lee. Are you surprised by what's going on in Crimea and in the Ukraine?
Not at all. Not at all. It's, anybody with any sense of geopolitical posturing could see that Putin has been, since he took over, has been working toward reestablishing the old Soviet Empire. And, I think he sees himself eventually as Tsar Putin. And Tom Clancy apparently saw him that way, too, because in Clancy's last book, the poor man is departed, and we're going to miss him greatly. But his last book, Command Authority, is about, guess what? The Soviets invading the Ukraine to occupy the Crimean Peninsula. Now, I guess Obama was too busy playing golf to read the book.
You know what? That raises a lot of questions. During the presidential stint that President Obama has been in office, there have been several questioning things that have happened. And, look at Syria. He drew the line in the sand, and people called his bluff on it, and he backed right off.
Yeah, but it was an erasable line. You just took your piece of tissue and wiped it out when it got to be uncomfortable.
So that's how that worked.
That's how that works.
Yes. When you're looking at the difference between President Obama and President Putin, you're looking at a warrior compared to a politician.
Yeah, a poor politician, a community organizer is even more. But he is a very good campaigner and fundraiser. I mean, I'll give our president his dues. He is excellent at that. Putin is excellent at playing chess, and he is playing, and I think he's also a good violin player because he's certainly playing our president.
Do you think that the defection of Edward Snowden into the into Russia had anything to do with the political scene that we're seeing right now?
It had to. I don't know what we haven't heard yet, because a lot of the people in the intelligence communities are afraid of what he's going to release. Well, I'm sure Putin and his crew have been through the whole thing by now, so they know all kinds of stuff that we don't know.
Yeah, it seems very... very coincidental.
It's frightening, really. It is.
It is.
We've backed ourselves. We took off on this far left view of if we disarm, everybody will love us and leave us alone. If we apologize, the world will flock to us. It's like going out in a dark alley and having several people come up to you and they start crowding you, and you say, "Look, I am just such a peaceful person. What can I do to make you happy?" And they said, "Give us everything you've got, and that might make us happy." that's Putin, and that's Obama, unfortunately.
You and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break, Lee. Please stand by. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. And I'd like to talk to you later on this hour about the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 and hear some of your theories. Exo Nation, Lee Boyland is our special guest. His website is www.leeboylandbooks.com. That's www.leeboylandbooks.com. And speaking about Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, I did a special audio op-ed. It's available at www.exoneradiotv.com because, get this, Exo Nation, the state director for the state of Pennsylvania for the Mutual UFO Network claims that the mystery is solved. Flight 370 was abducted by extraterrestrials. What will GM think of next? I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. No news at this time. Just a 2-minute break. Lee Boyland's my guest. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled lite.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Exonation, Lee Boyland is my special guest this hour. www.leeboylandbooks.com. That's LeeboylandBooks.com. And Lee, you and I were talking during the commercial break about the true value of good fiction writers.
Good fiction writers, they project the future. They look ahead. Tom Clancy's books, I love them. I mean, he was so far ahead, and you know who else loved them? Is the presidents. Kennedy liked the books. He liked, in fact, I think Kennedy liked the 007 books. Reagan liked the Clancy books. In fact, he put Tom Clancy on the map with one comment at a press conference that I just read this wonderful book. And I try to do that in the books that I write. We try to put some history in it. We try to tie this plot to current events or events that are obvious in the future. So I think that people that think that fiction is a joke, no, it's not. The people that take the time to really analyze what's going on and write fictional scenarios of what can happen it's a warning. And that's what I've tried to do in my books, is make a warning. What would happen if Iran managed to get nuclear weapons in the United States and detonate them? That was the first series. Clancy, he predicted the invasion of Ukraine, and it goes on. So I think people should pay attention to the writers that take the time to get their facts straight and don't give you a bunch of fantasy.
Lee, tell me about your book, Revolution 2016.
I foresee the clash coming as the left is absolutely determined to confiscate guns, and they're going to use any method they can. Executive orders, they're going to pass laws that violate the Second Amendment to the Constitution, and enforcing them will probably violate the Fourth Amendment. I projected this, and I started the book out with the fact that the election was stolen, and it's a rather interesting beginning. And then I go to use Colorado as the starting point of the fact that they passed state laws and they started trying to seize guns, and the people said, "No, you're not going to take my guns away from me. You're going to," as one of our famous actors said, "out of my cold dead hand." Mm-hmm. So, and I projected Colorado, and I was wrong on the state. It's apparently going to happen in Connecticut because they have actually done what I put in the book almost a year ago when we were writing it.
And that's gun control, right?
That's gun control. It's gun seizure, and I've got a cartoon on my website underneath on the book page that says experts agree, seizing guns, and then it shows Pol Pot and Stalin and Mao Zedong and all the dictators. That's the first thing they did was seize guns.
You see, I've got a problem with this gun control issue because up here in Canada, we've had gun control for so long that guns to us aren't important. So I have a problem understanding what the big deal is in the United States with the Second Amendment.
Well, the big deal is, as the founding fathers said, that how did they put it? A government that fears the people is freedom, and a people who fear the government is tyranny. And the Second Amendment was to make sure that the government continues to fear the people. We're not going to allow a government to take over because first thing Hitler did was seize the guns. First thing Stalin did. You go right down the list of the people.
Right.
Chavez. They're all Fidel Castro. Once you have disarmed the population, then you can control them forcefully.
Well,
right
how come it works in Canada and the United Kingdom and other countries where there is gun control?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. It seems to be working fairly well in Canada. I'm not sure it's working at all well in England anymore. Australia, the crime rate skyrocketed as soon as they turned into weapons. So I don't really think it's worked. I don't think it works.
Well, it does work here, and I'm proud to be a Canadian, and I'm proud to say that I support gun registration.
Registration, it's one thing. I agree with having a permit process to keep people from buying weapons that are mentally unstable, which we should have in this country. We definitely have background checks. But the problem is we have a HIPAA law which says the doctors cannot report medical findings to other agencies. So the nuts are protected, even though the doctors... And look at the one shooting in Colorado. That man was his own psychiatrist was trying to warn the police that he was a nutcase, and nobody paid attention. The Sandy Hook shooting.
Yeah.
The mother was trying to commit the son, and she couldn't get any help. So our system isn't working because we aren't using it properly.
What about the stand your ground law in Florida? What's your take on that?
Well, I am a concealed weapons permit holder in Florida, and so is my wife. Stand your ground simply means that if somebody is threatening you, you don't have to turn and run and hope they don't shoot you in the back or run you down and knock you down. That you have a right to stand, but you should not draw your weapon unless you are absolutely certain in your own mind that your life is in danger. And there's a big difference between somebody just cursing at you and waving their hands and to the next step where they reach for a weapon or pull a knife or actually start to hit you. And if you think you can't, if you're a small man or an old man and some young guy that's a lot bigger than you are is getting ready to just knock your head off, then you you have a right to stand your ground. That's the definition. The cases that are being used, Zimmerman and now this guy Dunn in Jacksonville, have nothing to do with stand your ground. Dunn is completely wrong. He had no right at all to fire his weapon. Zimmerman was on his back having his head beat on the cement when he shot the man, and that wasn't stand your ground, that was self-defense. Self-defense is when you're already attacked and you're defending yourself.
Then why all the hoopla about the Zimmerman verdict? Why was there nearly civil unrest because of the verdict?
Because two black troublemakers, reverends, decided to make it a national issue and stirred up racial hatred when there was no basis for it. They were reporting Zimmerman as a white man. And then somebody finally discovered, no, he's Hispanic. So now he's the first white Hispanic in America. He has a distinction. George Zimmerman is the first white Hispanic in America. I cover this. It's very detailed in my book, my new book, by the way.
I was just going to ask you how this works into your book. Can you give us a little idea?
The book indicates that like I said, I try to build fiction based on facts. So as I was building a case similar to the Zimmerman, the first thing I did is devoted about 3.5 pages to the Zimmerman trial. And I watched the complete trial from beginning to end on TV. They showed the whole courtroom procedures. I watched all the evidence, heard all the witnesses. So I'm pretty well familiar with what happened as what the jury heard. So I used that to create a fictional case in a fictional town in Alabama called Mudford. And the same thing happened, and here again, Reverend Dalston, because the book is a satire. Yeah, every name in the book is a satire. So we have Reverend Dalston, we have Reverend Scoundrel, and we have Nancy Maloney as the Speaker of the House, and it's got some real funny parts into it, but it's also very serious. And I used this to build a case where the same thing happened. And the people reacted again, and they literally ran the troublemakers out of the state.
Lee, when was the concept lost, in your opinion, that it's we the people, not I the person? And to me, that seems to be the way all governments are going. You put us into power, but once we're there, we tell you what to do, not what you put us there for.
Yeah, and I don't know that much about the Canadian system. I've enjoyed visiting Canada on many occasions, and I'm a person that believes that when in Rome, obey the Roman law.
Exactly, me too.
I don't tell the Romans how to run their country, and I don't want them telling me how to run ours.
No, because if you do, you end up on a cross on a hill somewhere.
Exactly, or a problem. What's happened in the United States is term limits. The problem we have is people get into the Congress, and especially the Senate, and they spend their whole life there.
Wow.
They've got 40 years, some of them. The Founding Fathers never intended that to happen. They intended the people, I hate to use the word the elites because they didn't, but the business class, the people that ran companies, that made things happen, would take 2, 4, 6, maybe 8 years of their life and pay it back to the government for the privilege of living here by going and serving in Washington as a senator or a congressman or an appointed official by the president. They never intended this to be careers, and it's become careers. We used to have, in fact, it's not recently, but up to through the early all through the last century and into this one, people referred to the Kennedys' Senate seat. I don't know whether you've ever heard it, but I heard newscasters talk about the Kennedys' Senate seat. Well, no, it's the Massachusetts Senate seat that the Kennedys won in an election. It's not theirs. They didn't inherit it.
Right.
We get this mentality of a ruling class, and that's what's happened. I think that's exactly it. We're getting a ruling class mentality.
Do you see it changing in the future?
I hope so. Because I think we're in America. Mm-hmm. We're getting such a divergence between the far left, progressives, whatever you want to call them. One person told me that I shouldn't call them progressive liberals. I should just call them far left. Whatever. It's the fringe on the left versus the more conservative people, and the gulf. it was a small gap. It's now become an ocean between the 2 points of view, and it doesn't appear we can reconcile peacefully this relationship. It's frightening, and if it is, if we can't, then that's what my book's about. It reaches the point where one side is absolutely determined to force their will on the other, and the other side said, no, you're not going to, and we start a revolution, the second revolution.
History does repeat itself.
It does, especially if you don't read the history.
And the sad part is it seems that we don't have the ability to learn from our mistakes, and we keep making them over and over and over.
And that's because we don't teach history properly. We've got people sanitizing history to make it fit their view of what should have happened rather than what happened. There's some bad stuff in history. Everybody, every country, every people have bad stuff. You have to know that so you don't do it again.
Lee, you and I have to take our first commercial break with the news. Please stand by. Exonation, our good friend Lee Boyland is with us this hour. His website is www.leeboylandbooks.com. That's www.leeboylandbooks.com. My name is Rob McConnell, and this is The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And if you'd like to read my op-ed on the claim by the Pennsylvania State Director for MUFON, John Ventry, that, the UFOs abducted flight, 370? Go to www.xzoneradiotv.com/flight370.htm. We'll be back. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. Lee Boyland is my guest, www.leeboylandbooks.com. And Lee's latest book is entitled Revolution 2016, and it's available at his site as well as his other books. And once again, that's www.leeboylandbooks.com. Lee, you and I were talking about Putin, and we understand that there are more troops coming towards the Ukraine. They've taken over military bases. These unidentified soldiers. They're not wearing any identification marks on them.
Yeah, they're wearing they're wearing a bland uniform. I guess is the best way to put it.
What do you see happening? Do you see Putin pushing his muscle, flexing his muscle, and actually moving into the Ukraine itself, or is he going to stop with Crimea?
I think for now he's going to get through the referendum that they're rigging on Sunday, which I understand has that the questions that the people can vote on does not include we want to remain part of Ukraine. So it's the choice of how they want to join Russia really is what their choices comes down to. And he's going to use that, and then he's going to claim the Ukraine. And I think he'll let things cool down for a year probably, and then or a year or so, and then he'll make a move on the rest of Ukraine, or he'll make a move on another country and pull the same routine that I'm there to protect the Russians. He's found a formula that seems to work, and he'll keep using it.
Well, is it the formula that he found, or was it the statements that were made by President Obama that there's a line to be crossed, and when push came to shove in Syria, he saw the U.S. back away, that in my opinion, opened up the book for what Putin's doing now?
It certainly did. I mean, you're absolutely right. And it opened up the door for Iran to continue developing their nuclear weapon while they sit there and smile at you and lie to your face. Which, by the way, according to the Islamic religion, if you are lying to a kafir, an infidel, which is us, and you're doing it to further Allah's cause, then you're totally okay to lie. And I have a friend that was a CIA operative and spent a lot of time in Afghanistan and other places, and he told me that they had put some of these people they captured, jihadis, on what they call the box, which is a lie detector. And they can sit there and absolutely tell you lies because they believe it's religious. Their religion tells them it's not a lie, and they will not trigger the lie detector.
Unreal.
Because they don't believe they're lying. And the whole point of that system works on your conscience. When I lie to you, I have a reaction, a very subtle reaction. But if I don't think I'm lying, then there's no reaction, and I can tell you anything I want to because God told me it's okay.
How far ahead do you think the nuclear development is in Iran compared to what they want us to believe?
Well, let me tell you what the basis real quick. On a uranium bomb, you have to purify, concentrate the isotope 235 to around 90% or better. They know how to do that. There's no question about it. The next thing is you can make a simple gun-type weapon, which was my first book, The Rings of Allah, which is very inefficient, takes a lot of uranium, takes probably 5 times as much as an implosion weapon, but it works because that's what we used on Hiroshima, and it worked pretty well, and it was never tested. It was that simple.
Wow.
The implosion means you take a sphere of the active material, uranium-235, and you surround it with explosives, and you detonate it in such a manner that the shock wave reaches the entire surface of the sphere at exactly the same time. Now, that's the trick. How do you do that? If you do, the shock wave compresses this ball from the size of a large apple or a small grapefruit down to the size of a golf ball. And that is, by doing that, you get into nuclear physics at this point, but basically you create a supercritical mass, which is a nuclear detonation. They have been working for years on developing explosives on how to do taking a steel ball and turning it into a steel golf ball. And when they announced probably about 5 or 6 years ago that they were quitting that test program, that means they figured out how to do it, so they could say, okay, we aren't going to do it anymore. We don't have to because now we know how to do it. They've got explosive plants in Ishfaram, I believe, if I'm a little rusty on my geography, where they can make high-energy explosives based on HMX, high-melting explosive. So they've got everything they need to make a nuclear weapon, and they've got the technology, they've got the know-how to do it. So my own opinion is, they probably got 2 or 3 of them stuck in a hole somewhere, but they're not ready to test the weapon to prove they have it. What they want is to have a production line of nuclear warheads. They want to set this up so that they can produce not 1 or 2, but they want to be able to produce several hundred or maybe more. Then you're a nuclear power when you have several hundred. If you have 2 nuclear weapons and you use them, you're dead.
Yeah, I guess so.
if you have 200, people are going to think twice before they fire back at you.
So do you think that Iran will actually use its nuclear weapons against either Israel or another neighboring country, or even the United States?
Or Europe. One of them, yes.
Really?
One of those places. I don't know. I have no way of guessing which one. Depends on what's going on. But I would my first choice would be Israel.
How about the nuclear capability of North Korea?
That's hard to pin down. The two they've had 3 tests. One didn't work. They were small yield. I think the last one was around 8 to 10 kilotons. But that could be a miniaturized version of a larger warhead. So I don't know. That is the most opaque country in the world. You just absolutely cannot get in there and get any information. And
well, Dennis Rodman got in.
People.
Dennis Rodman got in.
Well, yeah. Well, that's right. That's right. We should make him ambassador to North Korea.
Oh my God, we should just ship him over there. Period. What a disgrace. You know, you people in the United States have Dennis Rodman. Up here in Canada, we have Mayor Rob Ford of Toronto.
Yeah, he's like another one, isn't he?
Oh, God.
He's entertainment. He's a little more dangerous, though, because he's a mayor. Rodman is, what we really ought to do, I guess, is to give Rodman a plane load of booze and send him over there and keep Kim Ung drunk, and then everything would be fine. That's probably the cheapest way to handle it.
I never thought of that. Good idea. We talked briefly once again before the show about what's going on in Malaysia with the Malaysian airline Flight 370 mystery, and you came up, or was it your wife who came up with a very interesting theory?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Where the plane might have been or could be hijacked, brought somewhere, and repainted. Or refitted?
Oh, okay. I was going to be a little facetious at first and say, Earthman, we have your flying object and the carbon-based infections in it.
Oh, that's good.
Which goes along with what you started out with. But
yeah.
Seriously, yes, she came up with this. She's been reading too many books. If you took that plane and repainted it and waited for the right opportunity, you could load one of these nuclear weapons on it that Iran might have. And if you disguised it as any of the major airlines, I'll use United because that's one of my favorite airlines.
Right.
And you introduce that into the flight pattern coming into Hawaii, Los Angeles, San Francisco, or New York, or Boston, Miami. And the plane comes in, he says, this is a UA 536 heavy, low on fuel, request direct approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the direct approach takes them right over the city, and boom. This plane could be launched from the other side of the ocean. You see, it's got 7,000-mile range. That's the frightening thing about it. It's not a small aircraft.
No, not at all.
And it can carry a huge amount of weight. So... yeah, this could be dangerous. We got to find that plane. We really do. We got to find it.
Why do you think they're having such a hard time finding it with all the sophisticated equipment that's at their disposal?
I got an airplane from Patrick Air Force Base going over right now. The problem is they're looking in the wrong place because the radar station in the Straits of Macau had pinged the aircraft going northwest, and didn't tell anybody. So even their own government are out looking on the other side of the country in the wrong spot, and this airplane reversed itself about 170 degrees and went back over the country where it was launched, took off from, and headed out into the open Pacific. Now, once it's out of radar range of this site, unless some ship picks them up on radar, a Navy ship would do it, that plane could then make a turn and go any direction it wanted to, and it's got the range to go probably another 5,000 miles at that point. It could be anywhere at this point.
Do you think that we've seen the last of terrorist attacks on the U.S.?
No, I don't. I think I think we've seen some small ones. We've seen Major Hassan. We've seen that type of thing. We've seen shooting at recruitment centers. We haven't seen another big attack. We've seen a couple tried. The underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, which were sort of laughable because I don't think it would have brought the plane down in either case. By the way, the underwear bomber, if he lit the explosives, and a lot of people don't know it, but explosives burn very well, and they don't detonate when they're burning unless they're confined, and the heat builds up. I suspect that he's not going to be able to use the virgins when he gets to paradise.
Somebody sent me an email earlier today asking me if it was possible that the hijacking or the mysterious disappearance of Flight 370 could be a diversion to keep the public and the media away on what may be happening in Crimea.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure that Putin would go that far. I really don't think so. I don't think he's that far off. Now, the Iranians would do it. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them or any or that band of people. But I don't really think Putin would do that. I don't.
I guess time will tell.
Yes, but I hope we find the plane and the passengers somewhere. Otherwise, they're in the bottom of the Pacific.
No matter where they are, their families are going through living hell, and they deserve closure. I could not imagine the heartbreak that these people are going through.
Yeah, not knowing. Did you know? Are you aware that the phones are still ringing? That people are calling their people on the aircraft cell phones, and they're ringing?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, they are. So the plane is if it was in the water, those cell phones would be dead, and you'd be bounced to your mailbox. But no, they are actually hearing the phones ring. So I have no idea what's going on, but it's a very interesting. I think it's been a very interesting hijacking. Is what I think it is. It's
been a very interesting day today with the events that have been coming forward. The identification of those two travelers who have now been connected to human trafficking, who had the stolen passports. We've got the information now saying that the aircraft was actually seen, hundreds of miles off course, going back over Malaysia, which leads
on the other side.
Yeah, which leads experts to believe that there was something, what was the word they used? Controlled procedure in order to make it turn. But the big question is, what happened to the transponders? How come there's no communication?
They were turned off. They were turned off because or the wires were cut to them, which turns them off.
Well, we saw
either the pilots are in on this, or there's a pilot on board that took over.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think these young men could have been trained enough to fly. Now, the 9/11 hijackers only had to learn how to steer the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to learn how to take off, and they didn't have to learn how to land. But if you're going to steal an airplane, you better be able to land it. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So there's nowhere. If they were going to crash it into some place, it would have happened already. So that's not what happened. That plane has been taken. I think the plane has gone somewhere, and I have no idea where.
Speaking about 9/11, do you buy into the 9/11 conspiracy theory that the government was behind it and that it was a black ops?
Lord,
neither do I.
Lord, no.
Neither do I.
I got on one radio show a few years ago out on the West Coast. It was conspiracy radio. I didn't know it when I took accepted the invitation.
Right.
And these guys were all telling me how they used thermite to blow the building up. And when they finished, I said, "You know what thermite is?" "Yeah, it's an explosive." "No, it's not. It's not. It's a chemical reaction that makes molten iron. It doesn't blow up. It burns, and it gets hot, and it melts. And yeah, if you packed thermite around the girders, you could probably melt them and make them bend. But to do this in all the girders at the same time, or to use high explosives to sever the girders, you would have had to knock holes in the walls. You would have had to put big charges or packages on the girders, and you would have had to run wires through the building to the other charges. And I said, don't you think the people in the building would have noticed that there was detonating cord lying in the corridors, holes in the wall? No. It was a very clever. It was one of Osama bin Laden's better plans, and it really worked. You know, you hit it, and I don't think even he expected the results that he got, because the jet fuel ran down the elevator shafts, burning, and it created a suction. So when the air started coming up, it created the effect of a jet engine, because kerosene doesn't burn that hot. If you can put a pan of kerosene out and light it, and it's even difficult to get it started. But when you put a large amount of oxygen into it, and like was created, you've created the same thing basically as a jet engine, and it melted the building.
All right, Lee, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Lee Boyland is my special guest. Always a pleasure having you on the show, Lee. Lee's website is www.leeboylandbooks.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Lee Boyland is my guest this hour, www.leeboylandbooks.com. We've talked briefly about Lee's new book entitled Revolution 2016. Lee, how many books have you written all told?
5.5.
5.5?
5.5. Yes. I started out with... I'd never written... I'd written parts of technical books. I'd written technical papers, most of which were classified. I love fiction. I read Tom Clancy, James Clavell, W.B. Griffin, all of these fine writers, and I've always enjoyed reading them on airplanes, because I used to ride airplanes all the time, and I was reading sometimes 2 and 3 books a week just on long flights.
Wow.
But after 9/11, we were in Florida. I had come down here to manage a company on a contract for 2 years, and the contract was up, and we decided we liked it so much we were going to stay. And I took a year off to just do some fishing and figure out what I wanted to do next. And that's when 9/11 occurred. And I was cleaning the boat. We had a townhouse on a canal at that time that opened up to the inland waterway, Indian River. And we've been out. My wife and I go out before dawn. We catch fish, usually trout or snook. Sometimes we get redfish. And she would fix them with eggs for breakfast, and I'd clean the boat up. So we were in, and she starts hollering out the back door, "Come quick, hurry, hurry." And I had no idea what. I thought she'd cut herself, so I just literally almost killed myself getting off the boat and running up the steps to get to the house. And she's pointing at the TV we had in the kitchen, and there's one of the World Trade Towers is burning. And she said, "An airplane just flew into the World Trade Center." And we sat there watching it, and I saw the second strike. And as soon as I saw the second strike, I said, we've been attacked by terrorists. There's no question about it. And I hadn't been really following the terrorists for a number of years. I'd gotten out of the military end of it and was involved in hazardous waste and medical waste. So I started doing research on who is Al-Qaeda, what's going on. And a year later, I realized, 2 years later, I said, this country has not learned anything from this attack. When the Japanese killed fewer people at Pearl Harbor, and they attacked us with their, we knew who they were. They had their identification on their airplanes and on their uniform. And we entered World War II and fought on two fronts because of that. Well, here somebody kills more people in New York City, and 2.5, 3 years later, everybody's forgotten it, and we've just gone on like nothing ever happened. And I said, I'm going to write a book that I had been thinking about for a long time about how a terrorist could bring a nuclear device into the United States and detonate it. And so I just sat down and started writing the first book, The Rings of Allah. And I had no idea whether I could write a book or not. Turned out I could, but I just started. So I started out with the theory of using a gun-type weapon like the ones we used on Hiroshima because they're very simple. Very simple to make. You can take them apart. You can bring them in piece by piece, and anybody with any mechanical ability can assemble it. And anybody that's ever fired an artillery piece in any man's army anywhere would be able to set the weapon off, especially if they were willing to die setting it off. If not, then you have to rig up a timer. And the whole story just started to develop as I started writing the book, and it became. It ended with the attack being successful on several cities. And the book was devoted to how they did it. And it was a very, it was a detailed enough book that several people in the intelligence agency looked at me and said, this would work. And I said, yes, it would work. So we finished the book, and that was all I intended to do. And everybody said, well, what happens? Okay, you've created this terrible event. What happens?
Well, what happens is you and I have to say so long. We've run out of time. Lee Boyland, thanks very much for joining us. Exo Nation, visit his website, www.leeboyland.com. A great guy, and he'll be back with us in the future. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.